Hello, and a good morning, good afternoon, and a very good evening to you, the good people of Tube. Hope you're well today. Hope you are feeling grand and always in your world. Haha, I am, as I have a new guitar to show you today, everybody. This is a new acquisition of mine. I bought this recently off a good friend of mine who owns a recording studio in town. And basically, what this is this is a 1990 Fender ST62. It's made in Japan. It's basically like a 62 reissue. And from what I've read and what I've found out, there were kind of like three kind of like price levels of the ST62. There was a really expensive model which had like a nitro finish, all these kind of like, snazzy electronics, snazzy pickups and all this kind of thing, like, steel bot tremolo and all that lot. And then there was one below that which had an older body but with a polyester finish and slightly different electronics. And then there was the lowest model of ST62, which was a basswood body, cheap electronics, kind of cheapish kind of pickups, and that was kind of it really, and an extremely thick polyester finish. And that's what this one is. So this is kind of like, the lowest model of the ST62. This one, I think I've already said, but I'll say it again just in case. This one's from 1990. The serial number dates this to 1990. So it's, it's been around. And I recently bought it from a friend, and I love it. But my gravy has this thing been an absolute pig to get right. I mean, seriously, it's been... I've played guitars with issues, but this is on... When I got this, the issues in this one were on levels of a Batacaster. If you've seen the videos on the Batacaster, the issues in this guitar were exactly, parallel to that. Like, it didn't work properly, it was intermittent, the switches barely worked, the jack socket was rubbish, the pickups are weird. The neck, the action was like that high. It was ridiculous. The neck was like a banana. There was so many issues with this thing when I got it, and I got it basically. My friend bought this as a kind of like as a studio guitar, but when he bought it, I don't think he quite realised how much of a wreck it was. So when I went down and did some work for him in his studio a couple of weeks back. Quite a while back now actually. He said, "Oh, would you mind having a look, see what you reckon, see if it's worth salvaging?" He said, because he said like if it's wrecked, he doesn't really know what to do with it. So I had a look, and it was one of those moments where we opened the case and I actually saw it for the first time, and I was like, yes, I see what you mean. It was a wreck. It was a wreck. He was not lying in any way, shape or form. This thing was just... The strings were rusty. It was bad. In so many ways, this guitar was bad. So, I borrowed it to see if I could do anything to it. Just to see if I could do it. And for the first couple of days, I was like, I don't know if it's worth it. And it takes a lot to make me go, I don't think this is worth it. You know what I mean? I don't know if there's anything you can do. Because the neck had just bananaed. And I was just looking at it. And I got rid of the strings, the old strings. I'd got rid of them. I put some new ones on. I went and got some new strings for it, just so I could play it at least. I didn't want to play these old strings. I'd probably get like tetanus or something from it. So I just kept looking at it. I had it on a stand in the room, in downstairs in my room. And I was just looking at it thinking, I don't know if I can be actually... Not bothered, but I don't think it's actually worth the effort. Anyway, I went back to my friend's studio to talk to him about it, and we were nattering away about it, and I was just saying it needs so much work done to it. And he was like, "Oh, I'm not interested." He said, "I'm going to sell it." So I offered to buy it, and the price he gave me basically was like, really, really good price, and I bought it then and there. And basically from that point on, I've been on a mission to get this thing playing better, because it was terrible. It was filthy. The neck was I'm pretty sure the rosewood wasn't... You couldn't see the rosewood just on the dead skin of the thing. I don't think his fingerboard had ever been cleaned. It was dried out as well. The fretboard was so dry and it was just coated in dead skin. It's actually a gorgeous, gorgeous rosewood fretboard now. Like, it's really, really come to life. Thank you, Crimson Guitars, for your fretboard conditioning oil for that. It just brought it back to life. Anyway, so I toiled and toiled and toiled over this guitar. I removed all the horrible dead skin. I conditioned the fretboard. I fret leveled it because the frets... I've never seen so many high and low points on a fretboard in my life. If you look down the fretboard, you could actually see them. They were. I do not understand how that happened. It was insane. Anyway, I fret leveled it, and I was a bit like, and I couldn't get all. I just couldn't get all the wear out. So it chokes, and so certain frets don't work. And I've lowered the frets as low as I dare go. I mean, there's not much left. It needs a refret, really. As simple as that. And I leveled them as low as I dare go. And it still didn't play right. And and I was just like, this is a nightmare. So anyway, another little story I'll tell you was the truss rod. I thought the truss rod was broken. And I thought, well, if the truss rod's broken, the next at it. If the truss rod's broken. It wasn't broken. It's just that I don't think the truss rod on this guitar had ever been adjusted. The adjustment's down here like it is on an old vintage Stratocaster. And so I took the neck off and I was just turning the nut and it was going and going and going. You know, not ridiculously loads, but like, you know, truss rods normally take, you know, if they need altering, normally quarter of a turn, if that, will do the job. You know, you don't have to be kind of cranking on it. And this thing just kept going and it was so loose and I was like, it's broken. It's broken, it's threaded out, or the rod's broken, or something's gone really wrong. And then all of a sudden it bit and twisted, and the neck went whoop straight back. So it was like this. It was like a banana, and I finally got it. So basically, I don't think the truss rod nut had ever been adjusted on this guitar. Anyway, so did the frets, did the fretboard, did the truss rod. Cleaned the body because the body had just been sweated on every day of its life but never cleaned, and it was gross. If you did that with your fingernail, it just like came off. It was like flaky. It was gross. The saddles wouldn't move. The grub screws wouldn't move. I couldn't get it intonated. The neck wasn't shimmed, and it needed to be because it sat so low in the neck pocket. The action, even on its lowest setting, when I finally got the saddles to move, was still like ridiculous. It took so much experimentation with different sized shims to get the one that finally made this neck sit right. Anyway, and also another thing too is I don't, you know, whoever's played this guitar, for whoever had this guitar before me and my friend, I think they had a thumb ring, because if you look on the side of a fretboard, I don't know if you'll be able to see this. Maybe hang on a minute. You can kind of see the lacquer's gone. And it looks to me like somebody had a thumb ring, and as they were playing, it just ruined the lacquer basically on top. It's not really a bad thing, and the thing is, you can't really feel it when you play, so that's okay. But it's not great, and it does. I did get stabbed at one point down here. I had to break a bit off because it was stabbing me. But yeah, anyway, other than it being a total wreck. Oh yeah, and also the select switch didn't work when I got it. For some reason, there's no position 2 and 4 on this guitar. It's been rewired at some point. Somebody has changed a few bits about it. The pickups are original, but somebody had pushed all the pole pieces in, and it made it sound terrible. There was no balance in these pickups. Somebody had poked all these pole pieces in, because it confused me when I first saw it for an ST62, because that's a reissue. It should have staggered pole pieces, and these were all flat. And somebody had pushed all the pole pieces in, so I pushed all them back out. Got it intonated, got the neck seated right, cleaned the electronics, although they're not long for the world. These electronics will not last very long. They are nearly dead, especially the tone pots and the selector switch. The selector switch is literally hanging on for dear life. Cleaned up the jack socket. That's not long for the world either. Machine heads are good. The nut's okay. It'll probably need a new nut if it gets if and when it gets refretted. The tremolo was okay. But anyway, successfully as it is, and it's not 100% success, but I have been quite successful in getting it back to a playing condition where you can play it. It's not easy to play. though. This guitar is hard to play because there's no frets. There is basically like no frets, so when you're bending, it's quite hard. There's basically no fret there at all. Even on the high frets, they were so pitted that I was leveling it, and the pits just they were just still there. Like I say, they were visible before I even started doing the fret level. I just didn't get it. Anyway, I took the original. There was a scratch plate on it. It wasn't the original scratch plate. There was a scratch plate on it that I've took off and I've binned because I think somebody had spilt Coke or like I don't know, some sickly, horrible fizzy drink had been spilt into this guitar at some point, and it was all on the underside of this scratch plate, and it was stuck down. I thought someone had glued the plate down when I first took it apart. I thought they'd glued the plate down. It wasn't, and it took so much cleaning to get all this sticky residue out of the cavities. It's still not all out of there, and all of that scratch plate, I just binned it. It was just gross. The dead skin on it, the mess on it, gross. Get rid of it. It stunk as well. It was just like, ugh. It was just horrible. Anyway, so I put another mint green scratch plate I had on it, just because, yeah, I needed a scratch plate basically. The grub screws and the saddles I had to leave overnight with oil on them, relubricating oil on the grub screws and on the adjustment screws on the back. And in all fairness, these saddles have had it as well. They're so rusty, and the adjustments, the grub screws are so worn out that it needs new saddles really. The tremolo itself, the block, the base plate are fine, but the saddles, they're done. It's just been, they're just so rusty and so broken that basically like they've had it. I mean, they look great, but they don't perform, and that's the problem. And if they don't perform, it hinders the guitar because you won't be able to get it intonated. You can't get the string height correct and all that kind of thing. The action on this guitar has to be super high as well, so you can actually play it. But either way, anyway. No intro jam today, everybody. I'm going to quit waffling there. No intro jam today, as basically I came in here about an hour ago now to do an intro jam. Something just popped into my head, and I immediately knew what guitar and what video it was for. I was like, I know what that intro jam's for. And I came in here and recorded the backing track, and I clicked record, and I played the intro of what you're about to hear. And then I just didn't stop. So there's no intro jam. There's just having fun with this guitar. And it is a glorious guitar. And it will be a glorious guitar. And I'm going to keep it. Because not only do I massively feel sorry for it, and it's had a hard life, but I'm going to keep it for a while, and just kind of like, when I can afford to, I'm going to get it refretted. And just kind of just... As and when I can, I'm just going to get it up and running back to a good spec. You know what I mean? Because it's in such a bad way. I need to get some new saddles. I need to get new electronics for it. The pickups are okay. I need to get it refretted. So there's quite a lot that needs doing to this guitar yet. But I do love it. And the neck is to die for. The neck is absolutely fantastic. It really is. It's a lot wider than a vintage Strat neck is. And but it's really, really comfy. It's really, really nice, and I do love it. And I don't like writing off instruments. You know what I mean? Like the Batacaster. A lot of people have said, why did you even bother with the Batacaster? It's because I don't like to see instruments kind of like go to waste. If there's anything you can do to bring them back to life, then do it, so to say. Obviously within reason of your bank account. You know what I mean? Because it can be expensive. But yeah. So this is going to be quite an expensive fix. But what I'm going to do basically is I'm going to do it over a period of years, basically. You know what I mean? I don't think for one second this is a guitar I'm going to keep forever. It's not. I don't feel like that. That could change. Definitely could change. But this is one of those guitars that maybe by the end of this year, November time, December time, I'll look at maybe getting it refretted. And maybe early next year, I'll start looking at getting some new electronics for it, if they don't pack up before then. Because they're nearly... They work, but not very well. The jack socket needs changing as well, and obviously the saddles. In all fairness, I'd like to get new saddles first, just so I can actually play it. So that'd be kind of like the first thing, and I'm maybe looking mid-year at getting new saddles. So basically, I'm playing this quite a bit, but not a great deal, because it's quite, like I say, it is hard to play. It's not the easiest guitar to play, but I do love it, and you know, it's a really, really nice guitar, and yeah, and I just hate the idea of it. Kind of, it's had such a hard time, this guitar. Oh, by the way, as well, the polyester finish is easily 1.5 millimeters thick on this guitar. My initial thought was, oh, I wonder if I could relic it, because it looks so beaten up up close and personal. When you get up to it, it's so beaten up. I thought, I wonder if I could relic it to make it look like, you know, a bit more like actually, I initially went, it's like Michael Landau's black 70s Strat. I thought that looks really cool. But then I realised in a couple of the chips that this guitar's got on its body, there's one up here and there's one here and there's a few down here and there's a couple on the back. The lacquer finish, the polyester finish, is about 1.5 millimeters. I'm like, there's no way I'm relicking this. It'd be impossible. It'd be absolutely impossible. And even if I did get through to the wood, it would look terrible, because the lacquer would be so thick it wouldn't be worth it. It'd be better an idea just to strip it and refinish it. But I don't want to do that. I'm going to keep it as it is. And also, I like it in the fact it's pretty much a mirror image of the 62, which is really, really cool, and I like that very much. It feels and sounds and plays nothing like the 62, but it looks like it, and it's really cool. And when you put them next to each other, it's quite funny, actually. It's quite amusing. Although this one's got yellowed hardware, and the 60s old 60 Strats their hardware didn't yellow; it stayed quite white. So, but yeah, and the neck's nothing like a 62 Strat at all. It's far too wide and fat for that, but it's really comfy. Anyway, but it's still a glorious guitar. Like I say, it's a Japanese-made guitar, and I've never played a Japanese guitar that was terrible, and this one isn't terrible. It's just been abused, which made it kind of like bad. But now, with neck shim, the truss rod sorted, the electrics as good as I can get, the saddles as good as I can get, it's a functional guitar. You know what I mean? I would happily gig it as a backup. You know what I mean? With a backup, sorry. You know what I mean? I would gig this, but I would have a backup with me at all times, because I don't trust these electronics at all, especially the selector switch. The selector switch is pretty terrible at this point in time. I mean, back in you know, when it was brand new, and if it had been looked after, this selector switch would go on for longer than us. But sadly, it's knacked. So yeah, not good. But anyway, enough talking. That's a lot of talking. I do apologise. Anyway, let me show you what let me show you what this thing sounds like. And like I say, this was supposed to be just like a 4-minute intro jam. Turned out into this. Anyway, I'm gonna say goodbye now. Thank you very much for watching this video. But I hope you enjoyed the sound of this guitar, and I'll see you again very soon for another video. Have a great morning, afternoon, and good evening. Goodbye now. Yeah. We'll get it back to life. We'll bring it back to life, and it will be a great functional guitar, and it'll breathe, and it'll sing, and it'll scream for many years to come. This guitar will. Not giving up on it, and I'm glad I didn't give up on it. So thank you very much for watching. Goodbye now. Hope you enjoyed this.
Thank you.